Law school teaches you how to practice law. It creates great lawyers, but it doesn't teach lawyers how to run businesses. We really teach lawyers to be as great at running their businesses as they are at practicing law.
Hello and welcome back. We're doing things a little differently this week where I'm flying solo again, and I could not be more excited to introduce today's guest. Today's guest, Karen Dunn Skinner, is a coach, facilitator, Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, and the co-founder of Gimbal Lean Practice Management Advisors and the Lean Legal Academy. After 20 years of enduring the demanding hours and stress of being an attorney, Karen decided it was time, long overdue, to find a new way of working. She truly believes every lawyer deserves a successful practice, but more importantly, they deserve the time to enjoy that success. Karen now teaches lawyers and other entrepreneurs how to build strong business systems, delegate effectively, and work efficiently so that they can grow their businesses without spending every waking moment at their desks. Wow. I cannot wait to hear all of your secrets and how to actually make this all happen. So welcome, Karen. So great to have you here.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Let's go ahead and dig right in because I know we've got our listeners kind of on the edge of their seats at this exact moment. And I know there are several attorneys, lawyers, and entrepreneurs who want to learn a little bit more about your business. So share with us.
Sure. Well, you know how hard lawyers work. I know your daughter's a lawyer, right?
Correct.
So you know how hard she works. And we did those crazy hours for years. And it's kind of expected. But at the same time, it's really hard to have a law practice and actually have a life that you enjoy. A lot of people go into practice and they never imagine, whether they're in a large firm or whether they're starting their own firm, they never imagine that 20 years later, they're still going to be slaving away behind a desk. It's an interesting business because as you get more senior, those hours never really let up. In fact, they often can get worse. So it's difficult to balance that work or integrate that work with life. And on top of all that, what happens is that law school teaches you how to practice law and it creates great lawyers, but it doesn't teach lawyers how to run businesses. And on the other hand, almost all lawyers are running their own businesses. Sure, there are big firms, but the vast majority of lawyers in North America work in very small firms or solo practices. I don't know the exact numbers, but I think it's probably close to 75 or 80% that are working in small firms, not these large firms. So they're entrepreneurs. They're running their own businesses, but they don't have business skills. And even if they're in a larger firm, one of the things that we know personally from being in those larger firms ourselves and from working with large firms, for the last 10 years, is that most partnerships still operate like a bunch of individuals, like each partner is running her own business or his own business. And so we like to say they end up operating kind of like, individual law practices that just share air conditioning or central heating, depending on which part of the continent they're in or what the season is. So what we do is we really teach lawyers to be as great at running their businesses as they are at practicing law. So we teach them some of those very important skills that are going to help them run a business. So how to delegate, right? That's huge. And we can talk more about that because that's like a whole topic in itself. But how to delegate, how to manage time effectively, how to communicate effectively. So how to write emails that people actually read and don't just skim over or have their eyes glaze over. And how to really create an efficient way of working. And that was really how we came into it, was really looking at how to make the practice of law more efficient and more effective so that lawyers could do all the things they need to do to run their businesses, to scale their businesses without burning out. And I don't know if you know, but burnout is a huge issue in the legal industry. And as we've learned, it's also a really big issue for entrepreneurs overall. Every lawyer, even in a large firm, is usually in a sort of eat what you kill kind of environment. So for every single lawyer, they're really entrepreneurs. And that led us, after sort of working with lawyers for quite a while, to really think, all these same skills, the delegation, the time management, the communication, the whole efficiency piece applies to all kinds of businesses. So now although we do mostly work with lawyers, we also work with other organizations, other professionals, other entrepreneurs as well.
Wow, Karen, you just covered so many topics all in a couple minutes. And you really touched on some biggies, right? For all of us, delegation, which is huge. And I was on a Entreprenista event yesterday about scaling your business to 7 figures. And one of the topics Courtney and Stephanie brought up was delegation and how important delegation is in growing your business. I think there's also the secondary piece of that, which you alluded to, in delegation to avoid burnout, right? So you use delegation to scale in a positive way, and you can use delegation to avoid a situation like burnout. I know all of us go through a burnout period at some point, and we just have to have the tools to be able to jump back in. So asking you this question then, when I'm thinking about delegation and burnout, were you sitting in your law firm when you finally said enough is enough? Or tell me how you made that transition. Did you start working on your business while you were still practicing in a larger firm? How did you manage that? Because I think a lot of our listeners agree with you, but it's really hard to think through those steps. Like, what do I do next?
So I had a really interesting path to entrepreneurship. I was one of those people who always had a side hustle. So I worked through university, I worked through law school. Then I started practicing law in a very large firm in Montreal, where I did my law degree, started practicing in this large firm in Montreal, had the opportunity to leave that firm, join another firm, and work in a very small office, but of a very large firm in Eastern Europe. So I went there in Eastern Europe. And that was it was fabulous. It was fascinating. I loved living in Budapest, but it was an exercise in burnout. We were privatizing the electricity industry. We were working 36 hours at a time. We had secretaries on 12-hour shifts, but the attorneys were in the office all the time. We slept in the office. We had 3 meals a day in the office. It was ridiculous. I don't even know why they paid for my apartment, because literally we were never there. And I say we because people don't know this, but I'm in business with my husband, and we've been together for 31 years, I think, coming at 31 years this summer. And we practiced law together there in Eastern Europe, and we built this business together as well. So it was exhausting. And then I left that. So I've had a couple of moves out, left that big law practice, started a PhD, which is totally different exercise in burnout, because at the same time I had a kid, which is, can be a little challenging. And then eventually we moved back to Canada. And so after about 10 years overseas, and I started a solo practice. So then I was truly an entrepreneur, and I was doing all the things. And my partner was working as an in-house general counsel, and he was doing all the things. And we were tired. And at some point I thought, okay, I have to get out of solo practice, and I really need to get back into a business where I'm interacting with more people and I have more of an infrastructure around me. And that's when I ran up against the wall of, you haven't been practicing in a large firm for such a long time. And I thought, well, I don't really want to go back to that high pressure, but I do want some kind of business where I'm with people. And the recruiters all basically said, no, you haven't done anything for the last 10 years. I'm like, well, I did most of a PhD. I built a solo practice. I ran that solo practice, but that counted for nothing. So I was looking for things to do. And so to me, it wasn't like a jump from a big corporate job to running my own business. I was looking for things to do. And I had a couple of other little side hustles at the same time. And I thought, I'm going to kind of go all in on something. And then David, my partner, and I decided that he was fed up. He was tired. There had to be a better way to practice law. And for people who are not lawyers listening, the way that most law firms work is based on the billable hour. It's a partnership structure. It's often eat what you kill. There's a huge amount of pressure to do whatever the clients say, whenever the clients want, because, that's where the money is coming from. And there's not a lot of incentive for efficiency. And we really felt that if you could create more efficient practices, if you could get that kind of work done that you have to get done, which most lawyers love doing, if you could get that legal work done without having to do all the other business stuff, all the other admin stuff, if you could get that legal work done better, faster, cheaper, then you could actually have time to enjoy your life. And that's really why we made the jump, and we started looking for business improvement strategies. We started looking for different types of approaches to changing the way that law was practiced. And we ended up looking at and studying Lean and Lean Six Sigma, which is why I have a Lean Six Sigma black belt. We took a lot of training in it. We really believe that its focus on delivering high quality service with a lot less effort, less time, less waste, less frustration, all of that fit the practice of law and most other professions too. Like it's the same for lawyers and doctors and engineers and entrepreneurs. If you can find ways to do that work better, faster, cheaper, then you have time. And that time you can use for other things that are more valuable to you or that are at least as valuable.
And this is just absolutely fascinating. So you painted a very vivid picture for me, knowing that you and your partner, David, were literally sitting down saying enough is enough with a big sigh and there's got to be a better way. And when you said the words, there's got to be a better way, those were actually the words going through my head at exactly the same time that you were saying them, because you created I could feel by your description of exactly how you felt. And I think many of us listening today have had those days. We'll have those days. We'll have those days again. I mean, it happens. And having tools and resources to be able to lean into, like your lean legal business, that you promote and discuss. Then the second piece of that I think is really fascinating. And, I want to just touch on this is I really feel that you are a disruptor in your space. And everything you just said to our audience today, whether they're attorneys, engineers, architects, entrepreneurs, anybody in that space, in those professions, medical as well, right? That is a good time for disruption and business practices and standard operating procedures and knowing what you can bring to somebody's business to really streamline that and to give back time. There's nothing more valuable than time. We know it is the one thing that is a non-renewable resource, right? Is our time. So having said all of those things, and I applaud you, and I am so grateful that you are a disruptor in this space. And I'm so grateful for other attorneys who might be listening that there are ways that you can have a practice and have a life, and leaning into what Karen has to offer is going to be a great resource. What is the one thing you didn't know about going into business for yourself? You look at so many of these other businesses, you're so into their procedures and operating practices. What about your own?
So there were so many things we didn't know when we started our business. And I think part of that comes right back to what I said at the very beginning, that, as lawyers, we are really well trained to practice law, but we are not trained at all to run businesses. Some of my friends who are lawyers got business degrees beforehand, and they had different experience than me beforehand. I have a science degree, so I don't have, I didn't know anything about starting my own business. And there I was trying to do it. And what tends to happen with every entrepreneur, I think, is you end up doing all the things. And so we just jumped in and we started doing all the things. And one of the key things we didn't know when we started our business was how to think about how you name your business. And we now advise lawyers and other entrepreneurs on how to name your business. And the first thing we say is don't do what we did because, we learned really quickly that nobody knows what a gimbal is unless they're from a nautical family like David, or unless they do photography. They have no idea what a gimbal is. And we chose Gimbal for our company for a very specific reason, but nobody knew what it meant. They think it's our name. They call us the Gimbals. But it's not. A gimbal is the little gyroscope thing that you put a compass in on a boat or on an airplane that keeps that compass flat. So for us, we picked it because it's a navigational tool that keeps you on track and heading in the destination that you want to go to, on track and balanced on your own path while everything around you is shifting, right? Because the gimbal keeps you on the flat while the world around you is shifting. And that's exactly what we've done for entrepreneurs and for legal professionals. But I wish we had known a few things about naming before we chose that name. So while it is important to us, it didn't speak to anyone from an SEO perspective. It wasn't very great either. So, that was something that I wish that we'd known more about how to name a business. And now, like I said, we spend a lot of time helping people launch businesses. And one of the things we talk about is how to pick your name. So, Is it a name people can spell? Well, people spell Gimbal wrong all the time. Is it is it a name that's easy for people to remember? No, ours is not. So pick one that is. Does it really have anything to do with what we do? Like, does it have law in it? Would people find it on Google? No. So there are lots of things we teach people about how to name their business, and we start with the cautionary tale that is our own name. We also didn't know how hard it was going to be to sell lawyers on the fact that they even have processes. Like, we're talking a lot about how to make their processes more efficient, how to create standard operating practices within a law firm. And they're like, well, we don't have any processes. Everything is, bespoke. So that was something we didn't know. We didn't know how hard change was going to be, because essentially, you're right, we're disruptors. And I spend a lot of time going into firms and talking to lawyers about how they can do things differently. But this is a profession that's so anchored in tradition and precedent that getting people to do things differently is really hard. Even though people hate the billable hour, like clients hate it, lawyers hate it, you've got these billable hour targets. It's hard. It's really hard to move them away from it. I call it it's like the zombie that you can never kill. It just keeps coming back. And one of our things is really teaching people how to think about the value they deliver and how to price their offering, whether it's law or it's not law, but how to price that offering in a way that that really aligns the value that they're delivering with the value the client expects, and how to do that on a flat fee basis. We price all of our engagements on a flat fee basis. And then we don't have to sell time. And when you sell time, you get time, and you also have 24 hours of it in a day.
And we go back to that non-renewable resource that we have. And really talking about being a disruptor. And for anybody that's listening, for those of you who think, wow, not only do I have a product or service that might be new to the market, but I also have to educate my consumers, my clients, my audience about this product. So it's almost like a secondary lift, right? So you not only have a product, a service, basically you take to market, but you have to educate your audience, your target, on how they're going to get the most use out of the service that you offer. And you're really an advocate for staying in that space, and you continue to stay in that space, and you continue to grow in that space. And I think that is very inspirational and motivational to any of our listeners to, you are in the right space as you are disrupting technology, as you are disrupting something that has been a tradition in, as you spoke to, in the law space for so many years now. So having also said that, tell us a little bit about your biggest win to date in your business.
Okay. So you know what? I was thinking about this question ahead of time, because you had mentioned you were going to ask me this. And it's hard, because there've been a lot of things that I'm really proud of, but I was discussing this with my partner. I said, well, they're not wins. They're just what I do. They're like not a win, but there have been some really great things that have happened. We've gone from nothing to, a really loyal following of over 3,000. Now that's not like some Instagram, million people on Instagram type thing, but we have 3,000 people who open our emails every single week. And in our business, that's a really great following. Just last week, I was on a committee. I was actually leading the committee that organized and delivered a conference on legal operations. So legal project management, process improvement, business development, all the aspects of legal operations. And we had over 475 people from 61 countries attending the conference. And that was a huge win, because I ran the entire thing, and I ran all the tech for it, and I did all the marketing and got so many people that were so interested. So that was a huge win. And we're still getting people emailing us every day saying, oh, it was great. We learned so much. And that to me is a huge win. It's just part of what we do, of trying to, like you said, educate people on how they can run their businesses differently. It was great. So that was a huge win just last week. Some other things that I really am proud of having accomplished, so I guess they're like my wins, are really, we pivoted. We've done a number of pivots, and we talk to our clients, our entrepreneurs and our lawyers that we work for, about how to build that resilience and how to pivot. We went from an in-person business pre-COVID, where 90% of our clients were in the United States, to a hybrid business that provides online, in-person, and live online training and coaching to people around the world. 95% of our business was in the United States, and the border closed. So pivoting was really tough. But it, now we're able to actually help people all around the world. And it's really opened up the globe for us. We have, we'll do a workshop with, we do life and business planning workshops that are really, they're so much fun to do. I love it. We really help people think about where they're going to be in 10 years time and how they're going to get there. So, what is your destination and what is your roadmap and how do we break that down? What are you going to do this year? What are you going to do this quarter? What are you going to do this month to get you to that goal? And we're now doing those around the world. We have clients we spoke to someone in Trinidad. We have clients in Peru. We have clients all over North America. So to me, that's been so great. That's just another win.
For our listeners who cannot see you on camera right now, as you're describing where your clients are and the fact that you had a pivot and what that pivot has actually brought you as far as both clients and opportunities, I can see it through your body language. And it would be wonderful if all of our listeners could see this too, which we have to remember the fun, the fun in our business, the things that bring us the most passion, the things that get us up in the morning to get back to our desks, to serve our clients, our customers, our consumers. And there always has to be that piece in it. Otherwise, we do head down to a road of burnout or overwhelm or, all the things, right? So let's step into that fun just a little bit. I like to integrate some of these things so that our listeners have something really interesting to remember about you, aside from all your accomplishments, the things you're proud of, and the growing business that you and your partner are developing here. And we look forward to seeing all of those accomplishments. If I were in an elevator with you, what would be from the ground floor to the 8th floor? What would be an elevator tagline that you would say to me outside of work? Now, this is thinking about something like for you almost as a personal brand. What is something about you that you'd want me to know in a matter of 8 floors of an elevator ride?
So 2 things. I make the world's best chocolate chip cookies. Hands down. And I'll share the recipe if anybody wants it. But
yes, that would be great in the show notes.
I make an awesome chocolate chip cookie. And the other thing is that I am a not so secret artist. So it's, I have this very Cartesian kind of lawyer brain that really likes things to be controlled and likes things to be all in the proper little boxes and everything happening the right way at the right speed, which for my mind is fast. My mind moves very quickly. I am trying to talk more slowly today, but I work at a certain speed. But I have gone back to art and painting every day because painting fills me with joy and it makes me slow down. And there is nothing like completely giving up control, because in watercolor, which is what I use, you have to be willing to give up control. Watercolor often does its own thing. And I like more abstract landscapes where the water flows and the paint flows and the pigment makes the picture. And then you use your imagination to see what it is that you see. So that's what I would tell you from the 1st to the 8th floor. And then I would turn it around and ask you a question. Can I ask you a question?
Of course you would. Of course you can.
And this is a question we ask people when we're doing our life planning workshops. I want you to close your eyes and imagine that you're getting out of that elevator on the 10th floor. And I want you to tell me what you see, because that 10th floor is 10 years from now. That's your future. So you're going to open the elevator 10 years from now. And what do you see?
Oh, this is such a juicy question. And thank you for asking this question. I see an incredible, gorgeous working space full of female entrepreneurs where we have invested in each other's businesses. We are growing together. Almost as if you would see a office full of entreprenistas and at all different levels. And there's so much powerful energy in that room. And I cannot wait to get to my office inside of that space to share with other women the growths, the struggles, all kinds of insights. And what I ultimately would love to do is to continue to invest personally and with others in female owned and operated businesses. It's a dream for me to continue to do that.
Fantastic. I love that.
And we would have chocolate chip cookies, because as soon as you said chocolate chip cookies, I could smell the chocolate chip cookies with the elevator door opening. So there's that.
Fantastic. There'd be like a little kitchen where they just make chocolate chip cookies all day long.
Perfect.
But we asked the same question in a planning workshop with a woman who's just taken over the managing partner role in a very well-known regional law firm in Ontario with 3 offices and 150 lawyers, which is a good size for Canada, really good size. And we asked her what she would see when she opened the elevator 10 years from now. And her first words were buzz. I want to see buzz. I want to hear people at the reception. I want people in the reception. So I want every conference room full of people interacting with their lawyers. I want people back. And it was really interesting because we were in their offices it was in Toronto. We were in their offices in Toronto, and it was crickets in their main reception. There was nobody there. There were not very many lawyers in the firm because people are still working hybridly. So people are not all in at the same time and their teams are not in at the same time, which is a whole different management issue. But, she missed that buzz and she wanted to build a firm where people wanted to come into work every day, where they were sharing that energy like you're talking about, where they're invested in each other's businesses. And so we worked with her to really create the plan, the strategic plan that's going to get the buy-in, that's going to get people excited about coming to work again. And that's the challenge for a lot of businesses right now, is to get people excited about being back together in the same space again, the kind of space you're describing, the kind of space she was describing.
Well, and I think if we have chocolate chip cookies, that's a good start. And on my personal note, I'd probably have to have some live music. Somehow there'd have to be some live music integrated sporadically throughout the week or the month. Karen, this has been such a delightful conversation. I could go on, and we could cover so many different topics. So we might have to think about having you back to cover some other topics that come to mind, like AI for one, or as you mentioned, hybrid office and working spaces there.
Oh yeah, we didn't get to talk about AI. That's one of my favorites.
We did not get to talk about that, but we can think about doing that in a secondary episode. And for our listeners, they can join us and know that we will cover some of those topics moving forward as well. Karen, where can we find you? Where's the best place for our listeners and our audience to find you?
You can find me at gimbalconsulting.com. That's the best place. You can also find me at gimbalcanada.com. I actually just launched the new website, gimbalconsulting.com, but everything points to the same place. So it's all there. So if you end up with Gimbal Canada or Gimbal Consulting, you should end up on our website, which is all about how to build a law firm, a law practice, and a life that you love.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Karen, thank you so much. It has been fabulous to talk today. All of the resources that we mentioned on today's podcast will be in the show notes. So you'll be able to access all of those details below. And it's been wonderful talking to you. Please remember, head over to entreprenista.com/join. I'm Carlin Bushman, and I'm here to help you put your best heel forward.